Hey class, we're going to jump right in on this first assignment here, which is a structural foundation plan for a commercial building. And I have the final deliverable open here, so we'll be replicating this in Revit. So I'm going to go into Revit. As always, we're going to start with an architectural template. That's going to open up that basic architectural template with the views that we need to start working on our project. Well, I should step back. It doesn't actually have the view we need. It dumps you in floor plans level 1. A foundation plan is actually a structural plan. So what we want to do is we want to add a structural plan in here. To do that, we go to the View tab, and in here we find Plan Views. And you click the down arrow here, and you can see that we can add a structural plan. So we're going to click that. It will ask you what level are you going to use for this structural plan. We're going to use level 1. So remember, a level is a datum. It's an infinite horizontal plane. So we want the reference for the structural view to be level 1, or the finished floor of the building. So we'll hit OK. And you'll notice over here in the project browser that we now have structural plans, level 1. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rename that. Right click, rename, and we're going to call that foundation plan. It's going to ask you, as always, to rename the corresponding level and views. For this, we're going to say no, because level 1 is fine. We actually want this to be called just foundation plan, so we can say no, and it'll just change the structural plan to say foundation plan. And what I should have done is all caps. I'd like to be consistent. So we're all ready to go. We have our plan set up, and we can start drawing. This is Revit, so by drawing I mean modeling. So what we want to do, let's go back to our final deliverable real quick. And as always, we're going to start with the walls. And we can see that we have a foundation wall here. It's a 12-inch reinforced concrete wall. So, and the basic shape here is sort of an L shape. And that's what we're going to start with. We can also look at our drawing assignment to see a section through that wall, small detail, and we can see the height of this wall. That's going to come into play in a second. So what we're going to do is go to Structure, Wall. We're not going to create an architectural wall. This is an actual structural wall because it's part of the foundation. So we're going to go to Wall here. And again, remember your pattern. Give me a second here. My properties are not up. If that ever happens where your properties aren't showing, you can go to the View tab, User Interface, and make sure your properties are there. All right, so that's back. So now we're going to go back to our Modify Contextual tab here. And right now we're set up on Basic Wall. Well, we want a 12-inch foundation wall, and that type is actually by default in this template. And as always, we're going to check our properties. And I'm actually going to go up here to the options bar to check these. Unconnected is fine for now. The height is based on our section. So let's go back to our section here. The height of the wall is the top is at the floor level 1, and the bottom is at the top of the foundation. Now, we have a note here that says below frost line, so it doesn't give a specific dimension. We're going to go ahead with our zone here, zone 6. The frost line is 4 feet, so the bottom of the footing is 4 feet below grade. So if that's 4 feet from this dimension to this dimension, and the top of the wall goes up another foot above grade, that means we have a 5 foot in total from from finished floor to bottom of footing. Now we have to subtract from 5 feet 1 foot 2 for the footing itself. So this wall is 3 feet 10 tall. So when we go back to Revit, we can say that our height is 3 feet 10. As always, we want our location line to be finished face exterior for any kind of exterior wall. And we should be good to go to draw this. So, as always, I don't worry about getting dimensions perfectly correct. I just draw and I get the general shape in. So I'm going to click around and create that general shape. I'm not worrying about any dimensions. When I come to this point though, I can grab that inference and come up and create my walls. And there we go. Our walls are essentially created. As always, after we create something in one view, I like to click the little house button to open up our default 3D view, which comes in now into our project browser. We can see that we did in fact create some foundation walls. Again, I don't like these datum, these levels showing up in this view, so I will do right click, hide in view by category. That's going to turn them all off. Now I can also check an elevation, and I can see that the top of this wall is in fact where I wanted it, at 0, and it's going down 3'10". Let's go back to the plan. So now I want to actually create these or edit these walls so that they're the actual size of the building that we need. So we know if we go back to our final deliverable that our building is down here 99 feet 4 long by 59 feet 4. This inset is 20 by 48. Now we could do that with temporary dimensions, as we know. We could go, I do like, if you're going to use temporary dimensions, I do like to go into manage, additional settings, temporary dimensions, and change those to the faces. And since we're doing commercial, we should do your doors and windows to the openings. Hit OK. And now if I select a wall, you can see that the temporary dimension is going to a face. Of course, it's still going to the wrong face. And as I always suggest, we know that we're going to have to dimension this thing. So let's go ahead and throw these dimensions down anyway, or at this point. So the dimension command, I like to use the one up here on my quick access toolbar. The shortcut is also DI for dimension. And that overall dimension goes on the bottom. So before I do that though, I want to double check my style is 3/32 over here in my properties, or my style selector, or my type selector I should say. However, it's going to default to wall center lines, and I don't want that. I want wall faces. So I am going to click on this wall face, to this wall face, to this wall face, and I do that all in one command so that this is all one dimension line and it moves together. That's going to help us out later. Then I can go from this wall face to this wall face to this wall face, mimicking the dimensions here in my final deliverable. Finally, I can do the overalls here and here. Now, remember, if I want to change the dimension of this, so right now it's at 84 feet. It's supposed to be 99 feet 4. I don't select the dimension. I select the thing I want to move. So I always kind of think of my upper left point of my building as my anchor point. So I'm going to go to the opposite side, the right side, to select this dimension. And now I can edit this dimension and I can make it 99 feet 4. Now, this here is 51 feet 4 and this is 48. So we can just select this wall now and we can come in here and make that 48 feet. And you can see that this is now 51 foot 4. My overall, I'm going to select this one, and the 59 feet dimension should be 59.4. Sorry, that says 56. 59 feet 4 is where that wall is located. Now now that I have the right length here, I can pull these dimensions out. And this dimension here is 20 feet. So I can select this wall, highlight that dimension, 20 feet, and there we go. This says 39 feet 4. I can double check. That is indeed 39 feet 4. So my walls are now laid out. They're correct. These dimensions are a little sketchy where they are. I got to pull those down now too. So there's my foundation walls. The next thing that we're going to place is the structural grid. Now, those of you coming from ARC 110 may not have seen a structural grid before. This is common in commercial building plans, that the structural grid denotes the location of the structure. In this case, the building is a combination of steel framed with a few concrete columns as well. And typically the structural grid aligns with well, we also call it the column grid. Basically, A1, at that location there's going to be a column, and you can see here that there's a wide flange column there. So we need to lay that out. In Revit, the structural grid is a datum. So datums are on the architecture tab over here, where we have the level, which we've created before in Arc 110. The grid is another button. So we're going to click grid. And the grid is just like a level in that it's an infinite plane. However, a grid denotes, or a grid line I should say, denotes an infinite vertical plane that can be referenced in the model. So as always, we're going to check our type selector, 1/4 inch bubble. That works fine for what we want. That's the style we want. We are going to use the line tool. And the way that the grid line works is you click the point on the line that doesn't have a bubble, and then you drag the line out, as you can see. I'm not dragging actually, I'm just moving my mouse after clicking, and then you place the head. Now, one thing to note, it starts at 1. If you look at our grid across the horizontal, we have A, B, C, D, E. Now, a good trick that'll save you time in Revit is before you place your next grid, hit escape, get out of the command, change this bubble, or change this grid number, or grid line number. We're going to change that to A. Hit enter, and now that's A. Now, I could go on and create, let me just do another one, go back to grid. When I draw my second grid line, again, I'm going to make sure that I'm inferencing the bottom so that they all line up and they'll all move together to do my second grid line. Now notice, it figures out that my next grid wants to be B. Now another way that's even faster than drawing is I can select this grid and then hold Control and drag it. So I'm going to hold my Control button and I'm going to drag this over. And notice that I get that light blue dashed line inference that says I'm still in line with that, and I just drag that over and it makes C, D, and E. And again, I'm not worried about where these are placed. I'm just getting them in the drawing at this point. So that's A, B, C, D, and E. Now we have to go back to the grid tool to draw 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we draw them again from this side to this side. Now it's going to make that F. So we're going to escape, change that to 1, and now we're going to hold Control while we drag 2, 3, and 4. There's our grid. Now we can start going in and throwing our dimensions down to get the grid in the right place. The reason that we do the grid first, before we do any columns or anything, is now that we have the grid, when we place a column, we will place it at the grid line. If we move the grid line, the column will move with it. So that is very handy. It's very important to make sure that if you can, you connect geometry so that later down the line when the design changes or tweaks need to be made, everything moves together. That's the whole point of parametric modeling.